Hello there. Thank you for stopping by the channel. Today's story explores the hidden corners of the human psyche, gentle yet profound. Stay tuned, and don't forget to support the channel so you won't miss the next stories. It's crazy the things you do when you think no one's watching, when you think it doesn't matter. For 30 years, I thought I knew who I was. I thought I knew what I believed in, what I stood for. And then one night, one stupid, reckless, selfish night, I became someone else. My name's Aina, and if I'm being completely honest, I was the kind of person who always played it safe. Safe choices, safe career, safe marriage. But safe doesn't mean happy. If you're married, you probably know exactly what I mean, when the butterflies are long gone, and you're just roommates who split the bills. That was me and Bin. Bin was the kind of guy every mom hopes their daughter ends up with. He checked all the boxes. He was steady, responsible, loyal. But responsible doesn't keep you up at night. And after 7 years together, I was barely looking at him, let alone touching him. By the time my 30th birthday rolled around, I felt dead inside. 30 wasn't just a number. It was a slap in the face, like, this is your life now. Really? This is it? My friends knew I wasn't happy. They'd seen the fake smiles, heard the half-hearted excuses. So they decided I needed to let loose just for one weekend. A girls' trip to the Caribbean. Sun, drinks, dancing. Nothing serious. Just some harmless fun to remind me I was still alive. It started as a joke. We were sitting at the pool bar on the first night, tipsy off overpriced mojitos, when my loud, brutally honest best friend started whispering about this guy across the way. Oh my God. Aina, look at him. She nodded toward a tall, muscular man leaning against the bar. He was laughing with the bartender, confident, but not cocky. His skin was smooth and dark like polished onyx. He had this energy about him, like he didn't care if the whole world was staring. I rolled my eyes. Not my type, I said quickly, sipping my drink. Smirked. Because he's black? I froze. No, that's not what I meant. But the truth is, that was part of it. Not because I hated anyone or thought I was better, nothing like that. But growing up in a small, sheltered town where everyone looked like me, I didn't know anyone like him. Black guys were just, I don't know, a stereotype, something you saw in music videos or action movies. Not real life. Saw right through me. You're so full of it. You've been complaining about Bin for months. And now you've got a literal Greek god standing over there, and you're scared. Girl, live a little. I laughed it off, but her words stayed with me. Later that night, after a few more drinks and some terrible karaoke, we ended up at the resort's nightclub. It was packed and sweaty, the music so loud I could feel it in my chest. That's when I saw him again, Jamal. I hadn't even caught his name yet, but he stood out in the crowd like a beacon. He was wearing this tight white shirt that clung to his chest, making it impossible to ignore the muscles underneath. And then it happened. Our eyes met. I froze, my drink halfway to my mouth. He didn't smile, didn't wave. He just looked at me like he already knew how the night was going to end. My stomach flipped, and for the first time in years I felt something. A spark, a thrill, a danger. Nudged me. Go talk to him. I shook my head. No way. Fine, she said, smirking. He's coming over anyway. And just like that, he was in front of me. Taller than I'd realized. His voice deep and smooth. You look like you were having fun over there, he said, flashing a grin. I stammered, barely able to form a sentence. He leaned closer, his cologne intoxicating. Dance with me. I should have said no. I should have remembered I was married. But when his hand slid around my waist, pulling me onto the dance floor, all the rules I thought I lived by just disappeared. I don't even remember what song was playing, just the way his hands felt on my hips, the heat of his body against mine. Ben had never touched me like that, like he wanted to own me. By the time the night ended, I was tipsy, breathless, and completely out of my mind. Jamal walked me back to my room, his hand brushing against mine. He didn't push, didn't pressure me. He just stood there in the hallway, looking at me like he could see right through me. "You're not happy," he said simply. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. He stepped closer, his voice low. "Let me make you happy. Just for tonight." I hesitated. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to stop, to think about Ben, about everything I'd be throwing away. But the truth is, in that moment, I didn't care. I wanted to feel alive again. And Jamal made me feel like the only woman in the world. I wish I could say I stopped there, that I came to my senses and went back to my safe little life. But I didn't. I let him in. And what happened next? It changed everything. I don't know what I was expecting. A fling, a one-time thing. Maybe just a little escape from the suffocating reality of my life with Ben. Whatever it was, I didn't expect it to feel the way it did. We went to Jamal's room. It wasn't anything fancy, just a regular hotel suite. But to me, it felt like stepping into a whole new world. The lights were low, the air thick with the scent of aftershave, and something deeper, something raw. He didn't say much, just led me over to the bed. And in that silence, something cracked inside me, For the first time in years, I felt seen. When he kissed me, it was like the weight of my entire life came crashing down. In that moment, all the doubts, regrets, and what-ifs I had buried deep for so long, they were all right there. Jamal was different, not just because of his skin color, though I can't deny that was part of it, but the way he moved, the way he owned the space around him. It was so opposite from Ben. Ben was safe, predictable. But Jamal, he was wild, confident, unpredictable. And I didn't know how badly I needed that, until it hit me. I'll spare you the details, but that night it was everything I had been missing for so long. His touch was possessive, and I didn't want him to stop. I didn't care. In that moment, I forgot about Ben, about my vows, about the life I'd built. Afterward, I lay there next to Jamal, my heart still pounding, my breath shallow like I'd just run a marathon. I could hear him breathing next to me, his arm draped over my waist. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it felt comfortable, like we were two strangers who knew exactly what we wanted from each other. "Do you feel it now?" he asked, his voice raspy, as if he'd been waiting to hear me say something. I didn't know what he meant at first. "Do you feel the difference? You've been with someone who doesn't get you, someone who doesn't know how to make you feel," he said. "I know you, Aina. I can see it in your eyes." I didn't answer. How could I? Because he was right. Jamal knew, and that was terrifying. When the sun rose the next morning, I was a different person. I felt it in my bones. But it wasn't just the physical side of things. It was how he made me feel. He didn't need to say it. He didn't need to do anything special. He just was everything I had convinced myself I didn't want. I woke up before him, slipped out of bed quietly, and put on my clothes. I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew what was about to happen. The shame, the guilt, the self-loathing. I didn't even know how to face myself in the mirror. The next few days passed in a blur. I spent most of my time with my friends, pretending like nothing had changed. But it had. Every time I saw Ben, I couldn't shake the image of Jamal. Bin didn't even look like a man anymore, not compared to Jamal. He was soft, predictable, hell, boring. I wasn't in love with Bin anymore. I hadn't been for a while. But after that night with Jamal, I couldn't even fake it. And that was the worst part. It ate at me from the inside out. Every time Bin would touch me, kiss me, I felt nothing. Not because I didn't care, but because now I knew the difference. I tried to push it down. I tried to go back to my normal life. But every time I looked at Bin, I saw Jamal. Every time he spoke to me, I heard Jamal's voice smooth and commanding. And the worst part, I didn't want it to stop. I never told Bin. I couldn't. How could I explain that I'd slept with another man? And that it had completely ruined my perception of him, of us. And then it hit me. The thing I'd been running from. The reason I was so messed up inside. I wasn't just angry at Bin. I was angry at myself. Angry for letting my life become so dull, so predictable. Angry for never listening to the voice in my head that had been screaming for more. For excitement. For something real. Jamal wasn't just an escape. He was a mirror. He showed me who I really was, the parts of me I didn't want to face. I didn't want to admit it, but I was still prejudiced. Still closed off in so many ways. But Jamal made me realize something. I had never truly opened myself to the possibility of being with someone who wasn't like me. I'd always avoided it. Convinced myself I was better off with someone safe. Someone who fit what society told me was right. But Jamal, with all his raw confidence, his unapologetic swagger, he made me realize how small I had been. How small my world had been. I don't know what that means for me. Or for Bin. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But one thing is for sure. After that night with Jamal, I'll never look at my life the same way again. And that's both terrifying and exhilarating. It's been a few months now. You'd think that after something like that, it would have been easy to just move on, right? To shrug it off, pretend it never happened, and go back to the life I had. But no, it doesn't work like that. I wish I could say I had some big revelation, that I was magically transformed into this empowered, self-aware version of myself. But that would be a lie. In reality, it's been nothing but a mess. A mess I can't clean up. Bin doesn't know. He's never suspected a thing. At least, I don't think he has. But it's eating at me, this secret I'm carrying. I see him every day and I'm suffocated by the weight of what I did. It's not that I don't love him. Or at least, that's what I tell myself. I care about him. We've built a life together. We have history, memories, and sure, a lot of that is familiar and comfortable. But the truth, the ugly truth, I don't want him anymore. And every time he touches me, I cringe inside. I should have left him after that night. After I came back from that trip and felt this overwhelming sense of emptiness. But I didn't. I stayed. Because deep down, I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know how to explain that I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. That the way Jamal made me feel was something I couldn't unfeel. I tried to convince myself that maybe it was just a one-time thing. Maybe it was a mistake. A midlife crisis. Or whatever excuse I could come up with. But with every passing day, the reality became clearer. It wasn't a mistake. I didn't just sleep with Jamal because I was bored. Or seeking attention. I did it because I needed to feel something real. I needed to feel alive again. And in a strange, painful way. Jamal was the one who gave me that ... Not Bin. Not anyone else. Just Jamal. I still think about him a lot. I tried to act normal after I got back from that trip. I smiled. Cooked dinner. Went through the motions. But everything felt off. I couldn't look at Bin without thinking of how Jamal touched me. How he looked at me like he actually wanted me. Not just because I was his wife, but because I was me. I didn't realize how much I needed that until I had it. I'd go to bed next to Bin feeling like a fraud. I didn't tell him about Jamal obviously. I couldn't. How could I? How could I explain that I'd slept with another man? A man who was everything Bin wasn't: bold, intense, and so different from what I thought I was supposed to want. So I did what any coward would do. I pushed it down, pretended it never happened. But the truth is, you can't forget something like that. You can't forget the way someone made you feel like you mattered, like you were worth something, even if it was just for one night. The worst part, I felt that with Jamal, but I've never felt that with Bin. I've tried to tell myself it was just an affair, that it doesn't mean anything in the long run. But that's a lie, because after that night, I saw the cracks in my marriage. Cracks I couldn't ignore anymore. And now I'm at a crossroads. Bin doesn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve me resenting him, or comparing him to another man, or pretending things are fine when they're not. But I can't bring myself to leave him either. I don't know how to do it. The guilt, the shame, it's crushing. And every time I look at Bin's face, I see the man I used to love, the man I used to believe in. But the man I see now is a stranger, someone I can't get back to. I'm not the same person I was when we first met. And I don't know how to make peace with that. I can't go back to being who I was before. And maybe that's the real consequence of what happened with Jamal. I can't unsee the truth now. I can't pretend that I'm not aware of how much more there is out there in the world. How much more I could be. I spent years in a cage, pretending that my safe life was all I needed, that I was happy, right? But no, I wasn't. I was stagnant. The worst part is, I don't know what to do about it. Do I tell Bin everything? Do I confess what happened knowing it'll break him? Or do I keep living this lie, knowing it's killing me from the inside out? I can't even answer that, because part of me still wants to save my marriage. And part of me knows I can never go back to that. I think about Jamal often. I wonder where he is, what he's doing, if he ever thinks about me. And then, just as quickly, I push those thoughts aside. He was a moment, a flash, and that's it, right? But every time I hear Bin's voice, or see the way he looks at me with that kind of hopeful expectation, I feel a little sick, because deep down, I know that I'll never look at him the same way again. I can't unsee Jamal. And so here I am, stuck between two worlds, two versions of myself. One is the woman who was content with her perfect life, and the other is the woman who craves more. Who knows what it feels like to want something else, to need more. And I don't know how to reconcile the two. The only thing I know for sure, I'm never going to forget Jamal. Never. I had thought, maybe naively, that I could keep living this double life. The one where I smile at Bin and pretend that nothing's changed. The one where I keep up the facade of the happy wife, the loving partner, the person I used to be. But that's not how it works. See? Secrets like mine? They eat you alive. And eventually, they claw their way out whether you want them to or not. Bin started noticing. It wasn't anything huge at first. Just little things. A distance. A coldness in the way I spoke to him. In the way I looked at him. He didn't ask, but I saw the confusion in his eyes, the way he tried to make jokes or be affectionate, and I'd just pull away. I told myself it was just the guilt catching up with me. That I just needed time. But the truth? The truth is, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to try anymore. It wasn't that I didn't care for him. I did. I still cared about the man I married, the life we had built together, the stability he gave me. But after that night with Jamal, I couldn't stop comparing them. And it wasn't just the physical difference. It was the confidence Jamal had, the way he made me feel like I wasn't just someone's wife, but a woman worth pursuing, worth desiring. I never got that from Bin. Not in the way I wanted. He tried. He really did. But I was left wanting more. And it wasn't long before things started to unravel. That's the thing about lies. They have a way of sneaking out when you least expect it. It was one of those evenings. Bin and I were sitting down for dinner. The usual routine. He was talking about his day at work, and I was nodding along, pretending to listen. But my mind wasn't on him. It never was anymore. It wasn't until he stopped mid-sentence, his voice quiet, almost hesitant, that I snapped back into reality. Aina, what's going on with you? The question hung in the air like a heavy weight. You've been different lately. I froze. The words were out before I even realized it. I'm not happy, Bin. He looked at me like I had slapped him. His face changed in that instant confusion. Hurt. ... He didn't even try to hide it. And that's when I knew. This was it. This was the moment everything would come crashing down. What do you mean you're not happy? He asked, voice trembling. I didn't want to tell him. I didn't want to hurt him. But I couldn't lie anymore. I can't do this anymore, Bin. The words cut like glass. He stared at me, waiting, hoping. But how could I explain Jamal? How could I explain what I had done? The next few days were a blur. Bin tried to talk to me, to understand. But I couldn't say anything, because I had broken something inside myself. And no matter what I did, I couldn't fix it. Every time he touched me, looked at me, all I felt was guilt, shame. And the worst part, I didn't feel sorry for what happened with Jamal. I felt sorry that it showed me a truth I could no longer ignore. I had been settling. I had been in love with the idea of Bin, not with him. And Jamal, I couldn't stop thinking about him. His grin, the way he held me, the way he made me feel alive. It wasn't just about sex. It was about being seen, desired, something I hadn't felt in years. I was hungry for more, and I had already shattered everything. I packed a bag. I left. And that night, I felt both fear and freedom. The days that followed were chaos. I stayed with a friend. I tried to make sense of everything. I thought about calling Jamal, but what could I say? I wasn't ready. Then Bin called. Aina, please, we need to talk. I agreed. When I saw him at the cafe, my stomach twisted. His face lit up for a second, then fell again. Aina, what's going on? I'm sorry, Bin, I whispered. I can't keep living this lie. We were happy, he said. What happened? I don't know if we ever really were, I replied. I've been lying to you and to myself. I'm not the same person anymore. He wiped away a tear. So what? You're just leaving? I couldn't say it the way I wanted. I've done something I can't take back, and I don't think I can ever look at you the same again. He asked if there was someone else. I didn't lie. I told him about the affair, how it had changed me, and I watched him fall apart, piece by piece. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't fix it. And when we said goodbye, it was final. I returned to my friend's place, sat in silence, and for the first time, I felt honest. Lost, but honest. I don't know what comes next, but I'm here, finally here. Thank you for listening until the end. Every story holds a piece of someone's truth, and maybe a piece of your own. If this touched you in any way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories. See you in the next video.